Yes.
You do that before or after the bath?
On maintenance, I would probably do it before, because we don't want, just like a terrier, we don't want to bathe this back coat every single week. So most of the time, and if it was really overgrown, I would actually do it in the tub when it's wet and soapy, because then you're going to pull out more undercoat. So if I wasn't going into a show ring, or I wasn't doing grooming competition the next day, if she had a lot of coat, I would do that in the bathtub first initially. And that's a really good way to introduce new dogs to having it done, because wet soapy coat does what? It slides through. Any of my double and triple coated breeds, I don't touch them with anything before they go in the bathtub. Because you can get in the bathtub with a slicker brush and a husky, and you can get out 99% of that dead stuff, and then with the blow dryer, the other 1% comes out, and then half of the time all you got to do is a little bit of this. I'm telling you, if you have Pomeranian or a Husky or a Malamute or a Samoyed, and you can't do this with their coat when you're done, you didn't do it right.
Yep.
Okay? It needs to go back in the tub. It needs to be blown out again. It needs to be brushed some more. You didn't do something right. You will hear from a lot of people that you shouldn't condition those dogs. No, not if you're maintaining them regularly. If they come in every month, you don't need to. But if this is a twice-a-year dog, and even though it might not really be matted because the owner's actually doing something, you should condition it, because it's going to moisturize the skin. It's going to coat the hair shaft. It's going to make it a lot easier. I've had Huskies and that type of dog that I couldn't touch with a brush, but I learned that new technique 15 years ago, and I'd stick them in the tub first, wet soapy water. I could brush the whole dog and they just sit there, because you're not yanking on that dry dead coat. They don't like that. But if it's wet and soapy, it comes right out. So you save yourself a whole lot of work.
And you save half of the time.
You save tons of work. Now, I also have seen people that blow these dogs out first. Please don't do that. It's number one, you're wasting time. You're exhausting the dog, because now you're blow drying it twice, basically in their brain. You're blow drying them twice. First and foremost, you're putting dander, dirt, and dust particles into the air that everybody around you is breathing. No, 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 no. Even with a mask, that stuff, if you do that all the time, you're causing yourself, it's detrimental to your health. You really shouldn't be doing that. I know there was a big thing going around where a lot of people did that, and I see people doing it on Facebook all the time. They're blow drying this dog. They're not even wearing a mask, and they're blowing this dog out before they even put it in. So it's not even wet. It's not even wet hair that's going to fall on the ground. It's now floating around, embedded in all of those dander and dirt and pollen that they've been hanging out in the yard, because most people don't keep a Husky in the house. Some of them do. Nobody yell at me. But 9 times out of 10, but that's also what we're doing here. We're removing dirt, we're removing dander, we're removing dandruff, we're spreading the oil in the skin, so you can actually see a little bit of flaking and such on her skin there from me stimulating that hair. But if it was getting done every week, there would be less of that and you wouldn't see it. But just from that few minutes, you can see the difference of how it's laying nice. So that's the first thing I generally do. Actually, I shave faces and ears first when I compete, but that's my modus operandum. I do my clipper work first. So that's the other thing you need to do. If you're going to compete and certify and be under a time constraint, get yourself a little routine of, what you do. You'll notice that 99% of the groomers will shave faces and ears, and anything that needs to be clippered, they'll do that first. Now, she's kind of young and she has a little bit of a short muzzle. It should be a little bit longer and a little bit wider, so you can see by the fuzz on her face that she wasn't shaved with a 10 blade. So if you have a dog with, a nice big wide muzzle and a nice big head to match the rest of them, you can take a 10 or a 7 in reverse or what have you. But in this case, I'm probably just going to skim over that with like a 7 or a 5 and leave a little bit more of this plushy, smushy face, because that's part of their breed standard. That's what we want to see.
Question not totally related to the standard.
Mm-hmm.
If we carded legs, would they turn out like the backs do? Like it just kept going down?
You can do it to a certain, I imagine you probably could. That's just a whole lot of work because as the hair go for genetically, because of how we've turned these into American cockers, you know, the English cocker is more like an English Springer Spaniel. They only have furnishings here, here, and on the backs of their front legs. Those breeds all came from the same thing way back when. So genetically, these legs are built to grow more furnishings and more hair than this. So what happens is if you try to do that, it takes tons. You're fighting everything genetically possible on these dogs, like with the miniature Schnauzer. Okay, their furnishings, even though their back, their jacket, their back, their top skull, all of that is hand stripped. Yeah, you can't strip their legs. Genetically, I mean, you can try, but it doesn't go well. Genetically, that part of their body is just not built to be hand stripped. So essentially, that's the same thing. You know, you'd be really fighting yourself. You can probably lower this into the thigh a little bit more if you wanted to, but anything below that, you're really just fighting genetics, so it really won't, it doesn't help. And you know, a lot of people with Scotties and Westies, they pull furnishings on legs and everything, but it's different because it has to be longer. Their hair will actually grow coarse that long, but Schnauzers, they don't. And black standard Schnauzers and giant Schnauzers are notorious for having soft furnishings. It's just part of their genetics. So good question. But you can see now how all that just starts to lay down nice and flat. And what I would do is I would keep working on this area here because we want a nice, gently sloping top line when we stack her. This is a little bit of a slippery table. So we want this little bit of a slope down to the rear end. It's level, but it's just at a slight angle. And it should go right into the tail like that. You don't stack them with their tail up like this. We stack them with their tail straight out behind them. So what we want to do is we want to keep working this coat and making it lay down flat to accentuate that. All right. So, and I've only had her for a day and a half, so we're going to see how this goes. And that's the interesting thing too about dogs that I try to help people with is you get a new dog in your salon, I don't care if it's a show dog, you do something different, they're going to act different. It's just how it is. They're used to things being done a certain way. Every single one I get from Lindy is afraid of my blow dryer because it sounds different and it's bigger. You know, you have to work around all these things. So sometimes it doesn't matter how well socialized a dog is. What matters is the fact that they've been groomed enough that you can get them around something new that's freaking them out.
There's snacks in there?
Yeah, might be. You never know. What do I got? Did I bring a 7 with me? Let's see. Yes, I did. I'm gonna look at this. We're gonna try a 7 and see what that looks like. So part of what I was trying to explain to you with the face is that everything that I teach you is not necessarily set in stone. It can be adjusted based on the dog's conformation, which is very important. When I first started learning how to groom, I was like, oh, okay, I was taught that this is what I'm supposed to do. And that's what I did. You know, we did all of this one length all over. You never shaved anything backwards. God forbid you didn't shave anything backwards. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand here and talk to you for a minute because my clipper sounds different and she's going a little bit like, I don't know about all that. So I'm just going to let it sit here, see how she does for a minute and touch her.